Music. It exists, and it's completely subjective, apart from when it isn't. And on this occasion, you need me to tell you how good or bad this release is. And what we're going to be doing today is looking at the first EP released by Memi, a musician based out in Seoul, South Korea. She acts as both the solo artist and the guitarist in the band 24 Hours. As a solo artist, she's released singles such as Thin Lips Club, Guitar Pick, and I Don't Give a, to name but a few. This EP is her first endeavour at releasing a body of work and not just focusing on singles, and it's imaginatively titled Memi EP.
She's a genius.
It's a 5-track EP, with the first being NYFC. NYFC had previously been released as a standalone single, featuring the normal version and an instrumental version. Calling it an instrumental version is a bit of a joke, as in the normal version the vocals are so low in the mix you can't hear them, and the performance of the vocals is more akin to portraying schizophrenia than an actual musical performance. The song itself is a mashup of a riff-based alt-rock song with that of a light jazz feel in a hard and binary fashion. There is little to no attempt to subtly transition us from one feel to the next, instead electing for a 2-bar drum fill from the light version over into the more distorted heavy version. And when it comes to shifting back to the softer version, there's no transition at all, it just plops you back into that softer version. The song was supposedly written while Memi was out visiting New York City, which was unfortunately interrupted by near constant rain. Speaking as a British person, I would say that a little rain never hurt anybody, and perhaps she should have just taken a coat with her. It is entirely possible that the hard transitions between each section is there to represent the bad weather experience, but with little to no vocal work, that translation is even harder to really pick out. While the song might be a great demonstration of her musical ability, having studied music theory in her education, and her appreciation for great and fast-paced riffs, it does fall flat in its execution. On to song 2 now with Bassist, and things don't improve and sadly sound more like a demo than a final version fit for release. On paper, this song has all the usual hallmarks we hear from Memi and her music. Short, punchy, repetitive guitar riffs, robotic drums, minimalistic and stripped back verses with fast-paced vocal work to contrast. However, it's the production of the song that is its major downfall. As a result, the song is just a surreal experience, and not on a kind of hey, the elephant's got giraffe legs and an obelisk on its back, or just anything from David Lynch.
Who do you think that is there?
It's just bizarre. I think it's fair to say that her songs previously haven't had brilliant production, or at the very least had production that's in fitting with the overall vibe of the music she's playing. The drums are uninspired, the guitar tone is too small, and the dynamics don't really change over time as the song goes on. In relation to the guitar tone, to me it sounds like she's using a Vox AC30 or something similar. Don't get me wrong, the AC30 is a great amp, but in music like this, where she's relying on the guitar for the crux of the song, she really needs a tone that's bigger than what the AC30 can deliver, and therefore it does leave a lot to be desired. I believe the production would benefit a lot more if she were to use an amp with a much higher wattage, so she can get a lot more power behind her guitar tone. When I spoke earlier about the dynamics of the song, compare the beginning and the ending of the song and note how identical they sound. There's no build-up of instruments or any tension at all. The only real change in the song comes after the solo, where the tempo gradually slows down over time, giving us a glimpse of something that is a little different and just whets the appetite, or for it to be completely ruined by ramping back up and then quickly ending. And in my view, it's not a bassist she needs, it is just a better producer. It's finally with the 3rd track, Waikiki, that we're finally given something inspired and fun. It's got a feel to it that's very familiar to a number of Memi's other songs. It's written in E minor, it's riff-based, and it's got a fun, improvised feel to the guitar parts. It separates itself from the previous 2 songs, not only by having dynamic range, but it also makes great effort from blending one section into the next, making it feel much more natural. The intro riff is doing something new from her, as it's starting off in a higher register than compared to her other fast-paced riff-based songs. Whilst those have started lower and gone higher, this is effectively doing the opposite. The call and response style is used to great effect in the intro riff and helps to create its own unique feel within the context of the song. The pace changes down into the verse, pulling the focus from the guitar and onto the vocals, leaving the guitar with just focusing on the rhythm. The pre-chorus strips a lot of that back, opting for a much more atmospheric feel, which helps with the transition from the verse, giving the song overall a greater dynamic range. And looking over to the bridge, this is just a continuation of the improvised feel we see from the intro riff. It could be argued here here that the bridge is the weakest part of the song. Instead of trying something new, it's just reinventing the intro riff before repeating the same 4 bars and then going into the final chorus. Overall, it's a fun song and a welcome change from the previous 2. It is just a shame it takes until song 3 to get something engaging. Guitar Pick is the second song on the EP that has already had a release. You may ask, why is it on here and if it's had anything different done to it? The only difference between this version and the previously released one is that the vocals have been re-recorded in the final bridge. I obviously don't know if this was done specifically for the EP or if this was done when the original track was recorded and then for the EP they've just remixed it ever so slightly. It's the same production on the guitar, drums, bass and vocal right up until that final bridge where it is a different vocal take. As a song, it's very in keeping with Memi's preferred style, a fast-paced guitar riff with quick vocal work in the verse. As with the previous songs, the production on this one does leave a lot to be desired in terms of getting the right sound for the instruments that are being played for this particular kind of music. Something that I like and that I've noticed, and probably I'm the only person who's going to make this connection, is that the final line in the bridge sounds an awful lot like the stealth suit in Fallout New Vegas, just in the way that it's performed and the chirpy and optimistic feel to it. It has, pretty much no bearing on how I like the song, but it's just a little kind of personal Easter egg I like, I guess.
Ready, steady, fighty, sneaking done, fighting now. Where's my guitar pick? Here it is.
Guitar Pick is typical of what makes up a good song from Memi. As what I said with Bassist, this song has it all. It's got a fast-paced guitar riff, which then comes down in the verse and then is taken over by fast vocal work. It just so happens that Guitar Pick works and Bassist doesn't. Sorry for My Late Reply opens up very differently from the previous songs by starting with the chorus section. The lead guitar part that's played in the chorus is repeated both times the chorus appears, though for the second one it is expanded upon in its playing, which is probably the best choice, as developing and expanding that playing does a lot to improve the dynamics and overall feel of the entire song. Just repeating the same line would be a bit lazy. The verse drops down the energy with the guitar and bass following the same line, presenting a much more minimalistic feel. That minimalistic feel in the verse is further added to with a simplistic vocal delivery. Because of that simplistic approach, that draws much more attention to the vocal work and hence the lyrics that are being told. The song itself is a response to the tragic loss of a family member that Memi didn't reply to before their death. And it's this reason why I believe that the song has a much more somber feel when compared to the other songs on the EP, especially in the verses. The pre-chorus acts as a pre-chorus should, a great transition between the verse to the chorus, though in this instance I do feel that the pre-chorus is a little bit too long. There are 3 full run-throughs of the chord sequence with a little bit of variation, operating as an A-B-A type arrangement. In my view, the pre-chorus may benefit from being streamlined a bit and operating as an A, B and then straight into the chorus. Cutting it down would help with the pacing and keeping the overall energy level of the song up, and especially keeping that transition between the verse and the chorus much more in mind and showing how much the energy is changing as the song goes on. The second verse strips down the arrangement by taking out the guitar part and replacing it with a much more light synth sound. And I'd say this is a wise move to avoid copying the previous verse, so that there's attention to detail to keep things fresh and new. The song itself is perfectly fine. Musically, it's well put together and there's a lot of consideration for the arrangement and the overall flow of the song from section to section. However, much like the other songs on the EP, the weakest part of this song is the production, and where this really shows up is the guitar solo. The mix just doesn't push this far enough. A guitar solo is supposed to be front and center whenever it's played. How it's mixed in this song is much more like it's trying to just blend in with the rest of the instruments. There are parts of it that are really difficult to pick out, which is a real shame because it then lets the whole song down. So why did I make this review? I'm genuinely a fan of Memi and the music she writes and what it is. As a guitarist myself, her music really speaks to what I like about guitar playing, leaning towards fast riffs and being able to turn those into entire songs. To sum up the EP, I guess it does have all the things that I like about her music, but in my experience there's a lot more to music than just chord sequences and lyrics. The production of a song has a huge effect on how we enjoy music, and sadly frankly a lot of people overlook this detail when listening to music. Now, I've got experience in music production, and through that I feel that the EP sadly has a lot to be desired in this regard. There needs to be much more attention to detail in relation to the dynamics in her music that a good producer will hear and then bring out. As I alluded to earlier, so much of her music is centered around a great guitar riff, so why have such little thought dedicated for the tone that's being produced? Experimenting with different amps and microphone techniques would go such a long way to providing each song and each section with a greater sonic identity. Something else that I'd like to mention is that if Memi was okay with reusing and re-releasing some songs on this EP, perhaps a greater consideration for what those song choices were, looking at examples like Rock and Roll, Thin Lips Club and I Don't Give a, just to name a few. Guitar Pick is a fine song, it's NYFC that I have issue with due to the production and the frankly poor attempt at trying to blend two contrasting styles with little to no explanation as to why. As for what's on the EP, Bassist and NYFC will be getting a skip, but the other songs, especially Waikiki, are great additions to Memi's small but growing body of work.